So this is this week's challenge position. Hang on. And as I understand, and this is a chance to let me know if I'm completely wrong here, but the general idea is what should white play next, as opposed to there's any sort of forcing line here. Because frankly, we are just out of the opening in this position.
Yeah, that's true. Basically, there's a theme to the next few moves in this game, which is we're trying to stop black doing something. How do we do that? So the first question, John, is what are we trying to stop black from doing?
So this bit's pretty easy for me to solve because we are just about completing development. Neither king is castled, but I'd argue black has maybe a couple more weaknesses on the board than white does at the moment. You know, nothing devastating or anything like that. So white wants to stop black from castling. Or at least delay it enough that he can build up like a big advantage somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of moves that I considered here. And surprisingly, no one actually tweeted one of them to me, which I find interesting. But the moves I took a look at were Queen F3,
Okay.
which of course hits both the pawn on D5 and puts pressure on F7. I also looked at Queen H5, which does exactly the same thing. You have to at least briefly considering castling yourself as white, but because of the purpose of the problem that we're trying to prevent black from castling, that's the reason I've discounted castling myself straight away.
Sure.
And I've also taken a look at bishop F4.
Okay. All right. And which one do you think you're going to go for?
I'm going to go for... Which one do you think I'm going to analyze first, or which one will I ultimately go for?
Well, can you choose? Well, there's not so much analysis. So,
Yeah.
Do you have a preference and why?
I do. My preference is Queen H5. I'll briefly explain why from discounting the other two. Bishop F4 is like white's last developing move. It's the most active square that you can place the bishop on that isn't A3 where it gets chopped straight away, but it doesn't actually provide any immediate threat. Unfortunately, black can just castle, and it's not really that clear what you're doing, even though it's on a nice square.
Okay.
Queen F3 hits both D5 and F7, and that's great. Black's response will almost certainly be something along the lines of Bishop E6, for example, which stops D5 from dropping. But unfortunately, after that, I think maybe there's an argument to be made for castling. The only other move that I think elicits an immediate response might be Rook B1.
Okay.
So let's say Queen F3, Bishop E6, Rook B1. Black has to deal with that. And I'm going to say Queen C8 might deal with that. And the reason I say Queen C8 might deal with that is because there's the follow-up threat of Bishop B5 check if black plays B6, for example, which is really annoying because it can keep the king in the center.
Okay.
So Queen C8 solves that problem because after Bishop B5 check, you have C6.
Okay.
And that's why I think Queen H5 is potentially stronger, because at least it's on the same rank as the bishop when you're trying to come in and check. So, for example, you've got Queen H5, Bishop E6, Rook B1 to follow up, and then this is...
All right. You're making lots of sense, John. What I want is one...
that wasn't what I was about
What I want is one really clear thing. What's the big difference between Queen H5 and Queen F3? What does Queen H5 do that Queen F3 doesn't do?
Well, if black tries to take a tempo out to castle, you've got Queen takes H7 mate.
Yeah.
So it's like extra threat.
Yeah. No, it's... yeah. Because everything else is true about both moves. So that's the difference.
Is that the answer?
Yeah,
cool.
Queen H5 is the correct first move.
Yes.
You've done a really good job, but what you'd neglected to say is that obviously this really stops black from castling because of mate in one.
Oh yeah, kind of does.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning.
Sure.
Hits this pawn and black plays this, and actually you've already got white's next move as well. Actually, one thing that black is considering is maybe playing Queen D7 and castling on the opposite side of the board.
Sure.
And this is why your suggestion of Rook B1 is such an excellent move.
Well, it's also one of the only moves, if not the only move on the board, that's an immediate threat after like the d5 pawn is covered and the f7 pawn is covered. White needs something to keep black occupied without castling, and there isn't really another move on the board that does that unless you played bishop b5 check straight away, but then c6 and black castles.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Yeah.
And you should, just a general piece of advice to everyone, in general, you should always be looking out for moves like this, which do more than one thing. The rook is obviously great on this half-open b file, much better than it was on a1, and it gains time because black has to waste a move doing something about this pawn on b6. As John pointed out, b6 would be a big mistake because of bishop b5 check. And now if the bishop goes back to d7, white can grab the pawn on d5. And otherwise the king has to go to f8, and we've achieved our aim. Black can never castle. So black could also go queen c8 here, but that's not ideal because the queen really wants to come forward to d7. So the move in fact chosen in this game was rook to b8. So we've now permanently made sure black can't castle queenside. Black can definitely not castle kingside in this position.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all of our pieces on good squares. Nice simple move this time, John.
Yeah, so I think you'll tell me in a second, but I think I worked out what to play here as well.
Okay.
From previous analysis. So bringing back some of the idea, and you can tell this has been a theme for the last couple of weeks on the challenge because I'm slowly learning how to approach this kind of problem. But a lot of, when I was looking at all the other lines earlier, all of the reasons why white couldn't castle were because, well, black just castles straight afterwards and he's safe. But in this position, white has queen takes h7 if black castles immediately. So even though I'm not providing an immediate threat, I can still castle safely knowing that black can't castle in the next move. So I'm going to say white should just be castling in this position.
Castles kingside played. Excellent. You know, not only are you winning games in the halftime show, but you know you're doing relatively well in this position.
I don't know I'm trying to remember what I had for breakfast this morning. This is great.
I suspect you skipped breakfast. Anyway,
I
pawn,
skipped breakfast.
pawn to g6. So black is again desperately trying to castle. There goes your mate threat on h7.
Well, queen h6 and where are you ever going with your king would be a sensible question to ask.
John's doing really well. Quick. Although there is an ongoing theme. Look, we're stopping him castling again. If black can't castle... Right, here's the next question. If black can't castle, what's white's plan here? With this king trapped in the centre?
Probably put your rooks on the F and E files and just shove pawns in the king's general direction.
Be more specific.
F4 seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, let's go f4, f5. This rook's on a good file on b1. We don't really need to move it to e1.
I guess part of me is thinking I'd like to develop the dark squared bishop to any square just so I can swing the rook on the b file over to e1 at any time. So that's in the back of my mind.
Yeah, so maybe moving the bishop at some point. Okay, so that's the plan if black does nothing. Black harasses the queen. Really wants the queen out of there. Still looking to castle.
Which is fine.
So we've got 3 squares to move the queen to.
See, annoyingly, I can't move the queen back, as in back along the h file. Because if I could, that would be great. Because if the bishop comes back out, I then play the bishop into h6 and not tie my queen up.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't seem to do that. So I'm not going to play the queen to d2 because I'd like the option of bringing the bishop out. The queen to e3 keeps the pin on the light squared bishop, but it's not like he's moving anywhere fast. f4 has the advantage of hitting c7 if he moves his queen out to try and contest, but there's no way he can move his queen out to try and contest, so I actually don't know at the moment where I'd go. I'd probably go e3 for the very simple reason that it seems to keep a pin, but I don't know if that's strong enough to make one square better than the other.
Okay, you do get the right move, but not for entirely the right reason. Biggest thing, I mean, the pin is useful, but you don't want to be blocking this pawn pushing down the board.
Sure. Okay.
For example, black should probably play something like bishop e7 or bishop d6 here. And now we could go back to h6 to continue the theme of stopping him castling, but then he's going to go back to f8, and we're not really after a draw here. So we've bought enough time that's probably just worth going for some kind of attack like this.
Yay, I like this kind of move.
So we don't want the queen on f4 blocking our f-pawn from pushing down the board.
And I guess the queen will end up... I'm looking at shifting it across to g3, for example. and actually threatening to take the pawn and sack a bishop if he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Or just that, yeah.
Yeah, well, we got lots of promising things here. I think it's a commentary on how bad Black's position is that I think this might be the best thing he can do at this stage. Instead, Black looks to castle this way with bishop g7. Again, desperately Black is getting ready to make this castles move. What should White do next?
Bishop a3 has to be the move here.
And why is that?
Because it stops Black from castling.
It does stop Black from... I think John has really warmed to this theme. Now, how Black cannot castle is you may not castle through check, as I'm sure all of you know. Black also cannot really move any of the rest of his pieces, so a little bit stuck in this position. So what do you do when you're a little bit stuck? Well, you know, that bishop's moved a few times. Let's just go back.
Oh, no, I was almost going to suggest King d7 as being the best move for Black in this position.
Oh, maybe King d7 is the best move, but maybe we go c4 or something and start opening up the centre.
Yeah, then you play c6 and Black's much worse.
We declare the win of the puzzle since Black can no longer castle. Yep. Maybe. But instead bishop f8. Now, of course, we can prevent Black from castling completely with bishop takes f8. Is this what you would like to do here, John?
No, I'd like to play queen e5 first, Tom.
You'd like to go queen e5 first?
I'd like to go queen e5 first, please.
Okay.
I'll have a p, please, Bob.
You'll have okay. So, queen e5, and what does that do?
It threatens queen takes rook if bishop takes bishop.
Okay.
That also stops Black from castling.
Alright, so I go rook g8.
Oh, okay. Now I might actually have to think of something less clear.
Well, don't worry, you have a whole minute in order to find the best move in this position, John. No pressure. Place your bets in chat now as to whether or not John will find the best move.
This isn't that straightforward, you know. I'm trying my best to get away with f4 still, but I'm not sure I can. I don't think I can sacrifice a piece to play.
I mean,
F4,
I'll have your bishop off.
Yeah, exactly. I can't think of a good reason not to just play bishop takes bishop here.
What move should you always look at first, John?
Checks. No.
I'm gonna have to hurry you.
Really? Bishop b5 check, followed by c6, and then is there a knockout blow here?
Time is ticking.
Oh, and then bishop takes c6 check, yes.
And then bishop takes c6
oh,
check.
Oh god, that's disgusting.
We get there in the end.
Oh dear.
Black has to recapture. The bishop is obviously still pinned. B takes c6, rook takes b8.
Oh my.
There goes the queen. Alright, Black has definitely failed to castle and has definitely failed in various other respects. Anyway, that's been our show.
I want to ask one question. How bad was Black's position in the starting position? How much... Like, was it really more or less lost from the starting position?
No, it's just unpleasant. But,
because if you look at the starting position and you look at this, you do think, hang on a second, that's a world of difference.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we must let Simon start his spicy chess later.
Yes, looking forward to sitting back and watching that. Guys, thank you very much for watching Hack Attack. We will be back in 2 weeks' time, at 8 o'clock UK time on twitch.tv/chess. Stay tuned in a couple of minutes. Simon Williams with Spicy Chess will be your next show. Take care and good night.